Hello there everybody, Sam's Trains here and welcome back to the railway. Today I'm looking at an extremely unusual piece of rolling stock by Hornby. I've had my eye on today's model by Hornby for a number of years actually, but for whatever reason, mainly the price I guess, I've never bought one. Recently though, they turned up in a major Hornby sale, so I decided finally I'm going to get one. So today we are looking at this. This is Hornby's ZUA Shark Wagon, which appears to be a brake van unlike any brake van you've seen. And it does look like a brake van, and it was based off a brake van in design, an LMS one I think. But there's some debate as to whether these wagons were actually used as brake vans. From what I've read, I would say probably not. But regardless, it is true to say that brake van was not the main intended use for these wagons, which begs the question, what on earth were these for? And if you don't already know the answer and you'd like to have a guess before I reveal it, feel free to pause the video now and pop your guess down in the comments. The answer is not what I expected it to be. It's quite interesting. Anyway, we'll talk about that later on. So the full price for this wagon from Hornby is very high. It was £46.99 as an RRP, and the model dates back to 2008, so it's not like it's a brand new tooled model that I'd be willing to pay sort of 30, 40 plus pounds for. But recently Hornby have been doing a major sale at the retailers. The prices of these wagons have dropped significantly. Rails have this at the moment for £24.50, but Hornby has this for £22.99. It's a very strange state of affairs when we've got Hornby undercutting the retailers. That's something Hornby wouldn't do for a lot of years, but they are doing in this recent sale. It's good for us, the customers, of course. I'm not sure how the retailers feel about it though. But either way, I could not resist. £22.99 for something that should be close to 50. Yeah, I thought I'd give this a try. So let's see what this is like. I have to say, it feels pretty heavy. So hopefully this is going to be a weighty piece of rolling stock. I like my weighty models. It's one of my sort of irrational pleasures, if you like. Anyway, if you want to try one of these for yourself, affiliate links down in the description. For now though, let's get started. Alright, I do love an unusual / interesting piece of rolling stock, so this ought to be a good one. Anyway, let me show you the end of the box. So what I've gone for here is our 60078. It's the BR Load Haul Shark Wagon, and this one's number DB993826. And even the box does not reveal what this thing was for. So let's open this up, see exactly what we get, and see whether the wagon itself is as heavy as it seems to be. Yeah, and there might be a good reason why this is heavy, but we'll see. Okay, wow. Let's have a look at this little flap of instructional material then. Okay, so this shows the fitting / removal of a plough. So for static display, it looks as though you can fit a plough that doesn't have the NEM tension lock coupling incorporated into it, so that it looks a bit more realistic. And I think that's what I've just seen in the accessories bag. And then on the back, it shows us where to fit some of the buffer beam details. So this has got various pipe work that you can add if you want to. So let's have a look in the accessories bag then. Yeah, it's cool to get this number of accessories with a wagon. So we've got the pipe work, which is painted up, that looks good. And then we've got these ploughs, which, yes, do not have a NEM coupling on them, or even a hole for a NEM coupling to poke through. Yeah, that's a really nice option to have. Right, the wagon itself then, here we go, goodness. You know, this is technically not a brake van, or maybe it is technically a brake van, I don't know. This is going to be my heaviest brake van, barring maybe the Queen Mary. All right. Simple roof. Yeah, fair finish on that. It's about what you'd expect. Okay, lifting. Oh, wow. This weighs a ton. I'll have to put this on the scales later on for you. But yeah, what a fascinating piece of rolling stock this is. And I love the way this has been painted. It is quite a complex paint job. And a complex model too, actually. So yeah, I can kind of see why this would be relatively expensive, together with its incredible weight. Anyway, one reason why apparently this didn't make a good brake van was the wheelbase. As you can see, the wheels are very close together. They're positioned inside the ploughs, which apparently at speed made these very unstable and uncomfortable to ride in. But, and here's a clue, their intended use only required them to run very, very slowly indeed, so this wasn't a problem. Obviously, as a brake van though, this would have to move at a bit more than just a crawl, so they were apparently unsuitable for that. Anyway, fascinating wagon. We'll take a much closer look at its level of detail, and I think I'll weigh it live as well, just for the wonder of that. Yeah, level of detail, but first, let's have a bit of info on these vehicles in real life, and I'll reveal what they were for. BR's ZUA Shark wagons were based on an LMS design of brake van, and a couple of hundred were built to this new design during the mid-1950s. They were characterised by their iconic ploughs at either end. Now, these ploughs were not for snow, as you might assume, so if you guessed snow ploughing, nope, that's incorrect, but rather the spreading of freshly laid ballast over railway tracks. These vans survived for an enormous number of years in service, and they were slowly upgraded over the years to feature air brakes and other new technology, and they were operated by load haul, as can be seen here, mainline freight and EWS, in addition to originally British Railways. The design was in service until the early 2000s, which is pretty cool, and while they're not used today anymore, some of them have been preserved. Right, time for the weigh-in then. So I'm going to start by weighing a typical Hornby brake van. This is their LNER Toad. Not very heavy, this one particularly. Right, 37 grams. Are we locked in, Mr. Scales? Yes. The Shark then. It's going to be more, I can guarantee it, but how much more? 89 grams. So that's double? More than double? Crazy. But is this the heaviest brake van looking model I've got? I doubt it. I don't think it's going to be heavier than this, but it could be close. 89. Oh yeah, no, it's not even close, is it? But yeah, I would say then this is by far the heaviest four-wheel brake van I've got. Can't believe that they made it sort of 89, 90 grams. That's crazy. Do they want you to actually push ballast around with this? I guess you could, but it would mark the ploughs, wouldn't it? Anyway, absolutely astonishing. Detail-wise, this model is pretty bonkers as well. I mean, the number of separately fitted parts alone is just outstanding, to the point where if I saw a new tooled model released today with this number of parts, I'd be really impressed and I'd be praising it. And yet Hornby were producing a model like this in 2008. And the level of detail from manufacturers like Hornby and others as well definitely went down after this model. You know, we have not seen models with this level of detail consistently since 2008, which seems weird, but I guess it makes sense. I mean, all of these handrails are separate parts, the lamp brackets are separate, we've got loads of interior detail. This is a complex model, and Hornby have decided that the RRP for this had to be £46.99. So obviously this level of complexity has come at a cost, and more to the point, it seems as though people weren't having that, because now of course it's being sold for half price. So I guess it makes sense that future models were simpler than this, as prices have gone up. But anyway, we're getting ahead of ourselves here. Let's start by taking a look at the decoration, which here in this load haul livery is quite complex. Now the paintwork's been done really nicely. I mean, the joins between the different sections, those are really nice and crisp, and the wasp striping as well, this is excellent. The way it's been applied to the uneven planking looks really, really sharp. Then of course we've got lots of printed detail as well. We've got an enormous number of danger signs on this. I mean, 2, 4, 6 per side. Blimey, I wonder why there's so many. And then of course we've got other sort of information. We've got the specs here. Shark ZUA Tear 19. I can't read the smaller text there. We've got the number there though. Yeah, loads and loads of decoration. We've got the little steps which have been picked out here. The axle boxes have printing on them as well. And the roof is a different colour too. So yeah, the decoration generally has been done really well, but we have got a bit of the orange paint which has strayed onto areas where it shouldn't be, which is unfortunate. And in other areas as well, the orange paint hasn't quite covered the area properly. We've got sort of gaps where the planks are. So ironically, there's areas where the orange paint should be but isn't, and areas where the orange paint shouldn't be but is. which is a bit frustrating. But otherwise, yeah, it's a really good job when it comes to decoration. Detail wise, this is, like I say, quite crazy. We'll start at the bottom. Here are the ploughs, which are a little bit compromised by the NEM couplings, but obviously it makes perfect sense that these are here. And it's lovely that we have the option to remove all of this and fit more realistic ploughs if we want to, so that's nice. The underframe looks great as well. We've got footboards which are separately fitted, and then behind there, very nicely detailed axle boxes with springs which look good. And then behind there, we've got brake rigging. And if I show you the underside of the model, you can see, yeah, this looks absolutely fine. For 2008, this must have been incredibly impressive. And then we've got the number of handrails, of course. I mean, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 handrails per side. That's 18 in total. All of them wire, none of them plastic, so they're nice and sturdy. Yeah, that is just shockingly impressive. And then, like I say, all of the lamp brackets, these are separate parts as well, and generally very nicely applied. There must be 2, 4, 6, there must be 8 of those on the model. So yeah, the complexity here is absolutely through the roof. Although the roof is one area where the model's quite simple, just a little joke there. And then here we've got the buffer beams, looking a little bit simple out of the box, but again, there's detail that you can fit onto there if you want. Moulding quality on the buffer beams in places, not the best. Not too sure what's happened there. We've got really big, meaty buffers on this model as well. Look at the chunkiness of those. They do seem to be just made of plastic though, and they're not sprung. I was half expecting them to be when I saw the level of detail of the rest of the model, but no, they're just static buffers here. And the quality of the moulding's not very good. You can see we've got sort of flashing on the buffers. So there are a few things that sort of date the model in that sense. Interior detail is really impressive as well. So the verandas, or what would be the brake van verandas, these have been painted white, and there's so much detail inside here. We've got these turning wheels, which, I don't know, maybe they are for a brake, maybe they're to raise and lower the plough, maybe that would be my guess. Anyway, they're very complex, and there's other controls in here as well. Really love to see that. Although the true interior is a bit less realistic. I don't think there's any detail inside here. In fact, what there is a massive metal weight, which comes to about halfway up the walls. And I think that's why the model is as heavy as it is. It's not made of metal outwardly. I don't think the chassis is metal or anything like that. I don't think the body's die-cast. Well, it certainly isn't. So yeah, it's heavy, but because there's a massive weight on the inside. I don't know why they made it quite this heavy, but it does feel good in the hands, it must be said. And I think that's more or less it. I mean, we've got the duckets here, which are separately fitted, and we've got the glazing, and also the doors and the windows on the verandas. These look really good as well. And of course, yeah, we've got the separate glazing. So yeah, an incredible piece of rolling stock. It's not worth nearly £50, I don't think. But for half of that price, for £22.99, I am thoroughly impressed with this. This is one of the best brake van looking objects I've ever purchased for less than £25, I think. Level of detail, miles ahead of what I was expecting. But what about performance? It's an unusual brake van. It wasn't a smooth ride in real life. How does it perform in model form? Well, let's see. So here's today's test setup. I've chosen the Bachmann Class 20 in the Harry Needle livery because it's very similar to the Load Haul Shark livery, although yeah, it's not the same livery. And then it's a little bit tricky to figure out what sort of formation to run this Shark in. I can't imagine that it would be part of a big train, but then I have seen photos where it's behind a loco and then there is a train behind it. So I've set up some wagons. How accurate or realistic that is, I'm not sure. If you do know, please do comment down below. Anyway, let's talk about how free rolling this is then to start with, and the answer is not very. Well, it's weird. When there's no load on the axles, they seem to spin very freely, as you can see here. But as soon as you do put them under load, in this case, they're just under the load of their own weight, there seems to be a lot of friction there, and as such, I could not get this to sustain a roll down Gordon's Hill. Now, on investigation, the brake rigging was touching the wheels, which is not very good. I don't know why they can't build wagons where the brakes don't touch the wheels. So I adjusted those, I bent the brakes away from the wheels, which improved things slightly, but it's still not what I'd call a free runner. So I suspect it could be the axle box design. I've not actually been able to take an axle out because the axle boxes are so tight. Maybe that's it. Maybe it is the tight axle boxes. However, for a vehicle like this, I don't think it's terribly important. It's not as though you're going to be hauling 10 of these in a train so that the drag would become a problem. I suppose even if this was a brake van, I'd be more critical because it has got to be part of a large train then. Not sure that this has to be, and in any train this is only going to be going quite slowly. So it's not the end of the world. Worth noting though, yeah, it's not particularly free rolling. It's not dreadfully stiff either though, I should say, just to be fair, especially now that I've modified the brakes so that they're not touching the wheels, and gosh darn it, I've gone coupled. But that's fine, it's demonstrated the coupling. Let's back up and try it with the Class 20. Oh, might need to switch the controller on. That sometimes helps when the sprites aren't here. Right, well, that worked as well. Yep, so couplings, as you'd expect, not an issue. Let's bring this forwards over the points and we'll do the points test then. Okay, backing up. This should be all right, I think. I'm pretty sure these wagons, these open wagons, were okay on the points. Oh, let me open that back set. I always send them over there as well as part of the test. So hopefully they'll be all right. Just paying attention to the shark, which is okay. Ah, yes. All right, so it's fit for purpose on the track, more or less. I'm giving it the benefit of the doubt when it comes to the free rolling. I think usually that would be a problem with rolling stock, but in this case, not so much. Again, let me know what you think about that. Am I being too lenient there? But there's absolutely no sign of any issue over these points. Go on then, let's be stupid. Let's go quick. Yeah, I mean, it's not even sort of bumping over the points. The wagons have uncoupled themselves, which is quite the party trick, isn't it? Hang on, bring these back. Silly sods. Don't know why that would have happened. Oh, goodness me. Shouldn't have coupled on a curve. Ah, of course I catch these cock-ups on camera. All right. But yeah, that's fine. So with that, let's send all this off and we'll have a go around the track. Slowly, of course. Nice and slowly. All right, and as flawless as it was over the points, I'm not expecting to see any issues over the second radius or whatnot, but we shall see. It's all right on the broader curve. Of course, I've coupled it up to a train today just so that I can test its couplings and its stability as part of a train. But how you run this is obviously up to you. And yeah, it's fine. So I love this as an intriguing vehicle that you can sneak in a train or run by itself with a loco, I suppose. Is that how these could have run as well? It's just a cool thing to have. It draws the eye. It asks questions, or it causes questions to be asked. Yeah, what more could you want from a piece of rolling stock? Despite the weight of the wagon, I don't think you could really use this to plough anything out the way. The ploughs seem to be too high for that, and I've not seen any way to lower them. Again, though, I don't think you'd really want to do that. If you start putting ballast in the way of your trains and having this plough it out the way, I can't see that working. Surely, even with 80 odd grams of weight, surely it or the loco would derail. So yeah, it's a cosmetic thing. Why it's so heavy, I don't know, but I do enjoy it. I do enjoy the might that is the Shark van. And of course, they've really gone to town with the level of detail. Again, I am gobsmacked by how many separate parts this thing has. If you'd have said to me, here's a brake van from 2008, is it going to have every single lamp bracket separately fitted? Is it going to have that kind of detail on the veranda? I would say no, of course not. You can imagine what sort of brake van I'd be imagining. And then this, yeah, it's crazy. So many details. Obviously the decoration could be more modern than it used to be, but that's complex as well. Yeah, it's a really, really cool wagon. I'm glad I didn't pay sort of a lot of money for it. For less than £25, it is a complete bargain, which makes this even better, I think. So yeah, a very, very enjoyable wagon, the Shark. Let's have some ratings then for Hornby ZUA Shark wagon, and there's a bit of a mixed bag here, I think. There's a lot of impressive things about this, a couple of things that dragged it down slightly. The level of detail though, I've given 4-star, a very impressive model this. Loads of separate detail, wire handrails, separately fitted lamp brackets, the detail on the verandas is much better than I was expecting as well, and a complex paint job as well, of course. It doesn't get 5-star because there's no proper interior detail. I know you can't see it that well, but some brake vans do have proper interior details. No sprung buffers on this one, and in fact the buffers don't look the best here. They've got very clear moulding lines across them, not made of metal or anything like that. And it's missing fancy features such as lighting as well. Now, these are minor things. I'm not saying they matter too much, but I am saying that there are models that do have these features. So to be fair to those models, I'm knocking this one down a little bit as a fair comparison. Similarly, the performance effectively is absolutely fine. It's solid as a rock, handles curves and points without any problems, and the couplings worked perfectly as well. It's just not that free rolling. We've got the brakes touching the wheels, something about the axle box design possibly is producing friction, and there's no separate bearings on the axles or anything like that. So yeah, it's a relatively stiff roller. Other than that though, yeah, performance fine. Quality, I suppose, is the weakest area of this model. For the most part, this has been assembled really nicely. I didn't see very many, if any, wonky parts, but we've got a few issues with the paintwork, bits of paint where it shouldn't be, uneven paintwork in other places, a few moulding issues, the buffers, the buffer beams, yeah, not the greatest moulding, perhaps the tooling's getting on a little bit now. But there are aspects of the quality that are great. I mean, the wagon weighs a ton, the handrails and such are metal, not plastic, so they're sturdy. Yeah, it's very middle of the road. On the whole, decent quality, and I suppose there could be variation here. You could get one that's better than mine. I can see with the complexity, it could be possible to get one that's worse than mine as well, so your mileage probably will vary on that. Value for money then, so the full RRP for this is £46.99, and I can understand why a degree of expense would be necessary here because, as we've seen, there's a lot of separate parts. Equally though, it's kind of still just a brake van. It's not that complex and it's not that well built to the point where I think it's worth that. Recently though, they've come down to half price, £22.99. That is completely the opposite end of the spectrum. At that price, a model of this complexity is a 5-star. So I've split the difference and given it 3.5. At the right price, specifically the current sale price, these are a bargain. I would highly recommend them. So overall then, that is 7.21 out of 10, or a grade of D, which is a little on the low side. I think it's let down by the quality more than anything else. But on the whole, to say this model was introduced for the first time in 2008, that's almost 20 years ago now, I think that's not too bad at all. I think there are far worse models from that era that are still around today. So into the logbook this goes then, and it's 4th place, so yeah, certainly not too bad. Above Hornby's Stanier 57-foot coaches and below Bachmann's ZDO. Alright then folks, well that will just about do it for my review of Hornby's ZUA Shark. Really cool and crazy that I've never looked at one of these before. I have been aware of them, but until today, this thing has flown under my radar, which is a great shame, but also I guess it's a cool thing. Because just as I think I've experienced everything, I remember that this exists and pick one up. And lo and behold, it's a really cool model that I realistically should have looked at years ago. So yeah, enjoyed that. Let me know what you think about this, of course. Please feel free to comment down below. If you've got any more information on these, feel free to share that. But for now, I think we will leave it at that. Affiliate links in the description if you'd like to pick one of these up while they're still available at such good prices. And for now, thank you once again for watching, and I'll see you again very, very soon for another review or another video. I'm not sure what's next. Anyway, you take care, folks. Thanks for watching. Catch you on the next one.